We're back now at 7:41. More than 6 weeks after divulging classified NSA documents, Edward Snowden remains in a transport section of a Moscow airport, awaiting word on whether he'll be given asylum. According to a recent NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, the secrets he divulged are causing a majority of Americans to question the surveillance program here and the possible invasion of privacy. His father, Lon Snowden, is with us now exclusively, along with his attorney, Bruce Fein. Guys, good morning to both of you.
Thank you, Matt.
Contact with Edward? I mean, it's been 7 weeks really now. He's in that airport. Have you had contact with him recently?
No, I've had no direct contact with him. Indirect contact, yes. But
so no. Through an intermediary?
Yes.
Through WikiLeaks?
No.
No? Okay. And has he tried to get messages to you, or are you trying to contact him?
No real effort between either of us. I have things that I'm doing here. He has worked through, again, intermediaries, and I don't really want to get into
I could just
specifics.
interject, Matt. I did receive a call from Julian Assange, and he identified an intermediary in New York that we've utilized on a couple of occasions to get back to Edward, but we're not certain we got through.
Let me just say, some people have said they feel that WikiLeaks is using your son for their own purposes. How do you feel about that?
I can tell you, I'm thankful for anybody at this point who is providing him with assistance to keep him safe and secure. And so if WikiLeaks is doing that, I'm thankful for that.
I want to give people perspective. We spoke on the phone. I have a different sense of you, I think. A lot of people think you are a father wringing his hands at home over what's going to be the fate of your son. After talking to you, I see you as a guy who has some deeply entrenched, very passionate views about the issues your son has brought to the national discussion. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I'm a concerned father, and I love my son, but I have confidence in my son. At this point, I am absolutely certain that he is speaking the truth. I'm someone who has worked in the government for years and years and years, and I want to say, I am extremely disappointed and angry. I'm an angry American citizen. I've watched closely the balance of the 36 members on the two intelligence committees and within Congress, particularly the House. And the American people have not, at this point, they don't know the full truth, but the truth is coming.
Well, you talk about the members of the House. Let me talk to you about what happened in Congress on Wednesday. The House voted by a slim majority to continue funding the very program that your son exposed, 217 to 205. Now, you have to know that some of those 217 members of Congress are going to go back to their constituents, and they're going to say, the reason I voted for this is because it's vital to national security and protecting the American public. Based on your experience and your knowledge of the situation, you don't agree with that?
No, I absolutely do not agree. I absolutely do not agree with that. Certainly, we have a need for a strong intelligence community and a strong conventional defense, but many of those same people who will go back and suggest that we must fund these obscenely expensive programs that drive massive profits for companies like Booz Allen Hamilton and the Chertoff Group, for whom Michael Hayden is a principal. It's all about the money.
Matt, can I interject
these
here?
same folks do not want to even think about the southern border because 11.5 million votes are tied to that. I would suggest that maybe they need to speak to some border agents.
You also said you think the votes that were cast on that issue were cast strictly for political reasons, to save their seats in some ways.
If we're speaking about people on the intelligence committees, yes, I need to give credit where credit is due. Folks like Senator Ron Wyden, I have tremendous respect for his courage, Justin Amash, and the 205 members who did vote to terminate that
I've got to interject, Matt. There wouldn't even been a discussion if it wasn't for Edward Snowden. The fact that we had democracy at work is because of Edward Snowden. That's how it happened. That's how it works in the United States.
Which you bring up an interesting question. Yes. We have an NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, and there's a dichotomy here. 56% of the people in that poll said they are worried that these programs, the kind of programs your son has exposed, invade our privacy. On the other hand, only 11% of people support your son. What do those numbers tell you?
Well, they tell me that if you look at the concerted effort by both many of these congressmen, the Peter Kings of the world, the Mike Rogers, the Michelle Bachmans, the Dutch Ruppersbergers, to demonize my son, to focus the issue on my son, and not to talk about the fact that they had a responsibility to ensure that these programs were constitutional. They've either been complicit or negligent in their management of these programs.
90% of people feel your son did something wrong here.
Well, look at what's been reported in the media. I would suggest that many of the American people, I would hope that they would have watched his 12-minute video.
Matt, if I could interject, 4 members of Congress have styled and maligned Mr. Snowden as a traitor. It's defined as levying war against the United States. The President of the United States derided him as a hacker. So you have all of this huge media trying to portray him in a very, very negative light. So what do you expect the result's going to be?
In a letter to the President, one line jumped out at me. We are also appalled at your administration's scorn for due process, the rule of law, fairness, and the presumption of innocence as regards Edward. I think some critics might say the government is happy to show due process if your son would come back and answer to the charges. How do you respond
let me answer that as the lawyer. In order to have due process, you have to have a fair, impartial administration here. And when you're calling someone a traitor, convicting him in the press, having the President of the United States, a little bit like Richard Nixon saying Charlie Manson was guilty before you've had any trial at all, that doesn't inspire confidence that you're going to have even-handed justice. We wrote a letter to the Attorney General of the United States asking to engage in a discussion to ensure 3 cornerstones of due process would be satisfied, including, not unprecedented, that Mr. Snowden not be detained prior to trial. We have insolent silence. How does that inspire confidence that there would be a fair trial?
Let me end with Mr. Snowden. Obviously, your son's life is never going to be the same, whether it's living in asylum in some foreign country, coming back to the United States to face charges, perhaps spending the rest of his life in a federal prison. As a father, was it worth it?
You know, at last, nothing is sacred but the integrity of one's own mind. You know, Emerson said that, and that's something that I choose to live by. When I take my final breath, I have to be comfortable with who I was, how I lived. I believe that my son, when he takes his final breath, whether it's today or 100 years from now, he will be comfortable with what he did because he did what he knew was right. He shared the truth with the American people. What we choose to do with it is up to us as a people. Are we going to listen to folks like Mike Rogers and Dianne Feinstein who say, trust us, when we still have someone like James Clapper who lied to Congress? He's still being paid. He's still serving this country. He works directly for the President of the United States. We have much work to do. This story is far from done.
If he walks out of that airport in Moscow and heads either into Russia or some other country, are you immediately on a plane to go see him?
We're certainly going to do our very best to connect with him and discuss what we're
History will
planning.
vindicate Edward Snowden like it vindicated the Founding Fathers in protesting the British writs of assistance, indistinguishable from these surveillance programs of the NSA.
Bruce Fein, Lon Snowden. Guys, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.